The views and opinions expressed by the hosts of this podcast are solely of their own and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, and policies of their employees, affiliates, sponsors, or any other entities associated with them. The content provided in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to independently verify any information discussed and consult with the appropriate professionals and advice tailored to their specific circumstances. Now enjoy the podcast.
But they're the person that also doesn't make the psychological thought process into, bring it into full circle, and they get upset at their boss and punch them. And then get fired, and they're like, I'm like, you're a grown up, you can't do that. Like, you go to jail for these things.
Dog runs away. I feel nervous. I feel scared. And that's all that happens initially. The next thing, okay, which is maybe the most important part of today's episode, okay, is this next step.
Welcome to That's On That podcast, where we navigate the twists and turns of this unpredictable journey and are inviting you to join us in candid conversations, heartfelt reflections, and even a few laughs along the way. I'm Leo, your co-host, and I'm here with Bree. Let's get to the podcast.
Bree, happy Tuesday. How we doing?
Good. Yeah. Sorry. Brain is slow today.
Little pause there. Are you okay?
Brain does not compute well right now. Yes. I'm
okay.
okay. Everything is fine.
All right.
I'm recovering, trying to recover from being sick over the weekend, and things just aren't functioning as maybe they should
That
or
happens.
how they normally do.
That happens. There's some stuff going around, and people randomly get brain fog or,
That's the thing.
Whatever it may be. I was just a little surprised because, typically, people process things within 62 milliseconds. I don't know if you knew that or not, and I don't know. We can rewind this back, but I think yours might have been a little bit longer than that 62.
Maybe. I would
maybe just slightly
guess,
though. So
I would venture to guess. Yeah.
Okay, but you're doing all right though. No need to concern. My computer isn't freezing again. Okay,
not a glitch. Right. It's a feature.
It's a feature.
Feature, not a bug.
Built into the software. Well, speaking of brain software, ironically, I wanted to talk about how the brain works today.
Ooh, let's do it. I like the
brain. There's some physiological functions, and then there's some psychological functions to the brain, and I feel like we can talk a little bit about maybe what are some of the differences and how it works. What do you think?
I'm here for that. Let's do it. What you got?
Alrighty. So, number one, I want to say, to build context before we get into the depths of our brain, which is one of the most complex organs. I don't know. I think it's a muscle, right?
It's an organ. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, physiological, from what I understand and research and even experience, on a simple level, is your knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Okay? Knee-jerk is boom, it happened, and then it happened.
Question. Knee-jerk, you have no control over what happens that fast? Knee-jerk?
Correct.
Or knee-jerk,
oh,
somebody said something that upset you and you just immediately punch them in the face. Knee-jerk.
Great clarification. So knee-jerk as in, so physiological, to be more specific, is how the brain automatically works. Okay?
Yes.
So it's what's going to happen to your brain, whether you have time to process it or not. Okay?
Accurate. Yes.
Yeah.
It's how the impulse actually travels. It's an electrical impulse. It travels up and down the neuron, and how it reacts and all of that, and it connects, and bada bing, bada boom, and it all just happens.
Right.
That is physiological. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes, to answer your question, sometimes that could be an immediate reaction or physical reaction, whatever it is. And sometimes you may have the opportunity to not react right away, but there may be a reaction that your body has.
Yes.
Maybe that's helpful. And we can get into that a little bit later. But the brain does a lot. and there's a lot of anatomy on why it does it too.
Yes. I've studied a lot of that.
You have.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me more.
It's intense. I'm not a neurologist by any means.
Okay, that's
I
fair.
am just your
Maybe I
basic
should-
anatomy and physiology student.
Mm,
But
basic,
yeah,
very basic.
yeah. Well, I'll keep a basic level. But yeah, so it's the hardwiring of your brain, of your nervous system, right? And the nerves, they start at the base of the brain and they work all the way down your spinal cord, down to your tippy toes and to the tips of your fingers. And that's like, so one of the points that you were making, like a physiological response, you touch something hot and immediately pull your hand back.
Yeah.
That is the physiological pain receptor responding to, like, creating that impulse and that reaction before your thought brain, I like to call it a thought brain, where you actually process the thought of what happened. So your body has already reacted before your thought brain can even engage.
Yeah.
It's that fast.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Super fast, like probably less than 62 milliseconds.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, we have like the psychological too, which I feel like you hinted toward a little bit, and that's like
That's your thought.
Maybe a moment or 2 or 5 was taken between the action, between the physiological combustion that happens in your brain. So there's like an input and there's maybe an output of emotion or physiological. And then we get to the psychological actions.
Yes.
And a lot of times I feel like these are based on like past experiences. And hopefully they're through a lens of change.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, is I have like these pretty little slides that I want to share. You cool with that?
Totally. Yeah. Sorry.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bingo bango.
Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through what I think are the 5 steps of decision making, okay? And I feel like this paints a little bit better picture of how the physiological works and the psychological works that we just talked about, okay?
Okay.
Ready for the ride?
I am buckled in, ready to go. Hands
Let's
and
get it.
legs inside the ride.
That's on that decision making. All right, step 1, like we talked about, the action happens, okay? So your boyfriend breaks up with you, your dog runs away, you put your hand on fire on accident, like that is the action, okay?
Yep.
The thing happened, and there's things that happen in our life all the time that we have no control of, and we have to react to them, okay?
Yes.
So there's a lot of times where, let's talk about your dog running away. My dog loves to run away. Okay, I promise he loves me, but the dude is just a runner. I promise. So I have to decide in this moment: do I run after my dog? But first, I feel sad. I'm crying because my dog doesn't want to be with me and he's running away. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm tensing up inside. I'm feeling nervous that he's gonna get hit by a car or something like that, or eaten by a raccoon. Whatever it is, like that's step 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dog runs away. I feel nervous. I feel scared. And that's all that happens initially. The next thing, okay, which is maybe the most important part of today's episode, okay, is this next step. Do you choose to react on emotion? Step 2. Okay. Do you choose to, if your boyfriend breaks up with you, do you choose to go and key his car because he broke up with you? Do you take a baseball bat to his window? Like, what is your immediate reaction? Okay. The tears might automatically come from the emotion, but then you can actually react. So the emotion, and this part is a physiological, just to be clear, step 2 is a physiological. This happens to your body automatically. Okay. This is the way that your brain simply works. Now here's a difference. Okay. Here is where there's like a fork in the road, and people are different. Okay. So your reaction to your boyfriend breaking up with you could have been that you want to take a pause, you want to sit, and you want to think.
Got it.
you don't want to go key his car, at least not in this moment. Okay?
Right.
Maybe your brain told you to do that from the beginning, but it's like, no, let's just wait a second. I'll go key his car next week. I need to do these things before I key his car. Maybe I have some clothes at his house. Like, let me at least take a pause and let me think about it. Yeah. Or it could be, hey, this guy's no good for me. Let me go to therapy, write all the things he did bad. Let me find what I actually need in a partner, things of that nature. But like step 4 is about the thought. Okay? You felt the emotion, the action happened. Let's take a second and let's think about the situation. Let's go all the way back to step 1 and think about the action that happened. Okay?
Okay.
Step number 5, the last step that we're going to talk about today, the last step is to respond. Okay?
Okay.
And this is where a lot of people are separated, because a lot of people don't actually respond to things. They simply just react. Okay?
Ooh.
And there's a big difference between the two.
Point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a big difference. So, again, repeat step 1. There's an action that's going to happen. You can't control it. Running through these, I'm gonna go through these one more time. Okay. So you got an example, and if you have an example too, then like feel free to go ahead and jump in. But I got one. All right. Let's say that there's a fire. All right, and you accidentally put your hand on the fire. There's a fire. You accidentally put your hand on the fire. That's step 1. That's the action. Ooh, my emotion, my physiological brain is gonna be like, whoa, there's a fire. Take your hand off the fire. Automatically happens. Step number 3 is your reaction. Do I put cold water on it? Do I find some Neosporin? Do I put my hand back on the fire because maybe it felt a little bit good? Whatever it is, and then you move through to what your thought is. Maybe I need a bandage now. I already thought about it. I'm never going to put my hand there again. And that's how we're responding. And then hopefully we never experience that. On the opposite side of this, you just got fired from being a boyfriend. Okay? You just got fired from being a boyfriend. I already mentioned it. Do I go and key a car? Do I call up her mom? Do I show up at her house? Whatever it is. Do I give into those emotions, or do I take a second to think and then I actually respond accordingly? So here are the 5 steps. That's on the 5 steps of decision making right there. That's a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about a little bit later. We're going to get into some in-depth stuff past these examples, but I think we got something else for them, Bree, right?
Yes. So we've got a lot. The brain is how do I say this? Very much like the ocean, in that there is a lot of uncharted territory to it. So there's a lot to go into it, or a lot to dig into, I should say. There's just so much crammed in that little skull of yours. So yeah, but those are all like future us discussions. And then we can dig into more on like the various styles of decision making. That's a good one that we've got for further information coming up. Yeah. So that's what I've got.
Cool. So I think we got some stuff to share, more so about like the brain and like where things are firing once like emotions or thought happens. We also are going to share a little bit about like the 4 levels of decision making, as well as 4 tips. Okay.
Ooh.
4 tips to
I like
where
tips.
you can.
Tips and tricks are good.
They are. They're needed.
Yes.
They're needed. There's a lot of things I feel like we don't think about.
Ironically enough, that we're talking about things that we think about. Yeah. Funny little anecdote, actually. Well, I've got a couple little anecdotes, because this is...
What's that?
One's kind of funny. So, kids, and how we talked about this in relationship, or not relationships. Oh my gosh, words. See, brain's not working entirely all that great. Regulating emotions. We talked about that last week, and kids sometimes have a difficult time with that. And I've got, like, my little cousin she's like 9 or 10 or so. And when she was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old, had a really hard time like regulating emotions and dealing with reacting. And I discovered in just sitting, like, watching how she handles or like how she operates in those situations. It's because her brain is just like going a bajillion miles a minute, and the world around her is not, i.e., her sister isn't doing something fast enough, or it doesn't want to watch the same thing that she wants to do. So zero thought brain involved, picks something up and chucks it, or smacks her, or bites her, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, we got some rage things that run through our family sometimes. Don't judge. But yes, so that's that, like, what did you call it? The
Physiological emotion.
yes, yeah. So it's like that physiological. She doesn't have the ability to take that beat to turn it into a psychological thought process. It
Okay.
is immediately physiological, and I need to move. I need to hit something. I need to do something because I'm frustrated. And she would be the one that if she got fired for being a girlfriend, she's gonna bash the headlights.
She's going out the headlights. Huh? That's a smart move.
I fear for them.
Mm.
Anyway, I've also run into that with, like, grown ass humans, which is terrifying. Like, unfortunately, this is somebody that I have dated in the past. I know
It happens.
it happens.
Yep.
Thankfully, I was
We've
never
all been there.
the receiving end of this, but
Okay.
they're the person that also doesn't make the psychological thought process into, bring it into full circle, and they get upset at their boss and punch them, and then get fired, and they're like, I'm like, you're a grown up, you can't do that. Like, you go to jail for these things.
Yeah.
You need to use your thought brain.
I don't know if that's an acceptable response. I don't
I
know if that's
don't-
going to fly anywhere.
Yeah, so I mean, among other reasons, that relationship didn't work.
Well, I'm happy for you. Okay.
Thank you.
I am very happy for you, because it sounds like that should not have worked.
That's a win for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, anyway, I mentioned before that I have studied anatomy and physiology, and I am truly fascinated by the brain because, again, it is like the ocean of the human body. Boom. There's so much that we don't know about it, because not only do you have this, we know the physiological processes, right? We know how the neurons work and how they fire. We have studies of MRIs that show what areas of the brain light up when you're making specific decisions. If there's risk involved, different areas of your brain will light up than if there is no risk involved. Or, it is crazy. Yeah. Super interesting. So I can go 10,000 meters deep into this information. I'm not going to, because we're not all here for that. That is
But we will be. We will be. Yeah, so super exciting information. And then there's also all the super fun words that come into all of the cool sciencey stuff when you're talking about the brain. Like, you've got the prefrontal lobe and the anterior cingulate cortex and the amygdala and hippocampus and all of that. And it's just like, phew. So there's all of that. Those are the things. Yeah, I know. Those are the things that we can actually study and learn and get a more tangible grasp on. And there are things that we can't. This is the part of the ocean that gets really deep, because that's the psychological part of it, right? Because there's an emotion center, which we can physically see on MRIs that light up. But there's more to it. So yeah, more to come. Wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
All right. I think that we might need to cut you off here.
Feel free. I'm off my soapbox. That's all I got for.
I have a feeling that we could go and we could start tipping a little bit.
I'm gonna dive off the deep end if I don't back it up.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll let you dive into the deep end on next week's episode.
That's a future Bree conversation when my brain is actually functioning.
When it's back on that 62 milliseconds.
Yeah. When we're high speed.
Yeah. Alrighty, cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for that education. Next week, way more detail.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed this journey. You've learned something along the way. And at the very least, maybe to take a pause and don't let those emotions create a reaction. Let them create a response. Maybe.
Yes. Don't hit
that's
people
on...
just because you're mad.
Don't hit people. Yes.
Use your thought brain. Use your thought brain.
And that's on decision making?
That's on decision making. Ciao. And that's on that, guys. Don't forget, anonymously or otherwise, we want to hear from you. So make sure to reach out to us at that'sonthatepisode@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle there is @that'sonthatpod. We're going to be posting episodes weekly, and we'll also have some solo pop-up episodes here and there as thoughts and ideas pop up in our individual lives. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of that. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We really hope that you stick around and enjoy this journey with us. We will see you next week.
Next week on That's on That.
When the degree of reward uncertainty, so there is an uncertainty to the reward,
Yeah.
the number of brain cells are activated or brain areas are activated.
So I actually, I think I struggled with making decisions for a long time in my life. I don't think it's an easy thing for a lot of people to do. I'm not going to say I'm an expert either, but I was a part of this mentorship program, and they gave me this blueprint that I think helped with my last step of at least knowing how to make decisions. Sometimes we know information and we don't act on it all the time.
Yeah.
So this at least helped with 2 layers of decision making. And I'm going to tell you right now that I heavily operate in 2 of these, okay?